If you are a B2B marketer in the Gulf, you know this feeling, right? You're getting the likes, you're seeing the shares, that follower count is ticking up. But when it comes time to prove its real value to the people signing the checks, it gets a little tough. So in this explainer, we're going to dive right into that problem, how you can connect all that social media activity to real, measurable business results.
And this is the question, isn't it? This is what executives across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the entire GCC are asking their marketing teams. It gets right to the heart of the challenge. So our goal here is to build a clear framework, step by step, so you can answer that question with total confidence.
At the core of this whole problem is something we can call the ROI disconnect. It's this gap, this space between the things marketers often measure, the activity, and what the business actually values, which is the impact.
And you can see it pretty clearly right here. It's almost like two different worlds. On one side, you've got your activity metrics, likes, impressions, follower growth, and yeah, they look good in a report for sure. But on the other side, you have the business outcomes. This is the language of the boardroom: leads, pipeline, revenue. The disconnect happens when we can't build a strong, clear bridge from one side to the other.
And listen, this is not a small issue. The UAE and Saudi Arabia are right up there at the top globally for digital ad spend per person. The investment is definitely there. But the problem is, all this rapid growth has kind of exposed a weakness, a lack of what you'd call measurement maturity. A lot of money is being spent, but without a really clear system to track if it's actually working.
So here's the crucial pivot we need to make. The goal is to completely change the conversation. We need to shift how social media is perceived, moving it away from being just a cost center, another line item on the budget, to being seen as a measurable, high-performance channel that actually drives growth. Because when you can prove ROI, you don't just get bigger budgets, you get a seat at the table, you get real influence.
Okay, so how do we make that shift? Well, we have to start by redefining what return even means for a B2B company. It's not about chasing generic metrics anymore. It's about building a structured journey that aligns directly with your specific business goals.
This is the very first question you have to ask, because ROI is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. For a logistics firm in Oman, for example, a fantastic return might be lowering the cost to acquire a new customer. But for a SaaS provider over in Riyadh, it might be all about getting a bigger average deal size. You have to define what winning looks like for you first.
So here's the path forward. You take your social media activities and you map them to the classic B2B sales funnel. It all starts with awareness at the top. From there, you move people to engagement, then to conversion, and finally, you measure the revenue impact. This simple four-step map, well, it's the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
Now let's get into the good stuff, the right data points for this journey. We're going to break down the specific, practical metrics that you should be tracking at every single one of those stages. So, at the very top of the funnel, awareness, you're looking at things like impressions and share of voice. But here's a key insight for the GCC. Quality of reach is so much more important than quantity. I mean, reaching 1,000 verified decision makers on LinkedIn is infinitely more valuable than reaching 100,000 random accounts, right? All right, for the next stage, engagement. We're measuring things like click-through rates and engagement rates. And in the Gulf region, the data is pretty clear. For B2B, the most meaningful interactions are happening on LinkedIn and X. Those are really the platforms where you're going to find that concentrated professional engagement. Now we get to conversion. Here, we're tracking actual leads, specifically sales qualified leads, or SQLs. And the pro tip here is, well, it's completely non-negotiable. You have to integrate your web analytics, like Google Analytics 4, with your customer relationship management system, your CRM. Think HubSpot or Zoho. This is the only way you can actually watch a lead from social media become a real sales opportunity.
And finally, we hit the bottom line, revenue impact. Now we're talking about things like customer acquisition cost, customer lifetime value, and of course, attributed revenue. The big challenge here, especially in the region, is multi-touch attribution. That means understanding all the different social media touchpoints a customer had before they made a purchase. It's tough, for sure, but it is the ultimate goal.
Okay, so you know the funnel and you know the metrics, but how do you actually track all of this stuff? Well, you need the right set of tools, the right technology. This is the backbone that's going to hold your entire ROI strategy together.
Look, the smartest marketers build an integrated system. You start with your website, insights from something like Google Analytics 4. Then you add a social suite to manage all your platforms in one place. But the most critical piece of the puzzle is connecting all of that to your CRM, because that's where you track the sales. That's where the money is.
And let's just quickly demystify one of the most important tools on that list, UTM parameters. Don't let the name scare you. All this is really is a special tag you add to your links. It's like a little digital breadcrumb that tells your analytics exactly where a visitor came from, which social platform, which campaign, even which specific post. It's a simple idea, but it's an incredibly powerful way to know what's working and what's not.
Now, we're at the final, and maybe the most important step. Collecting all this data is one thing, but data by itself, it doesn't really persuade anyone. You have to turn that data into a compelling business story.
And this is how you do it. First, you visualize your results with clear, simple charts. Second, you have to give those numbers context by comparing them to industry benchmarks. And third, and this is key, you must translate the data into the language of the C-suite. Don't talk about impressions, talk about cost efficiency. Don't talk about clicks, talk about how you're increasing deal velocity.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? The entire focus has to shift away from just counting clicks to proving that you're influencing what actually matters to the business, revenue. That really is the ultimate test of any social media strategy. So, as the digital economy in the GCC just continues to boom, remember this. Measuring your ROI isn't just some task you do for a quarterly report. It's not the end of the process. It's actually the beginning of a mature, strategic, and continuous cycle of getting better and better at your marketing.
And that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. When you really look at your own strategy, your own metrics, and your own reports, which is it? Is your social media just another cost center? Or have you really turned it into a true, measurable growth engine for your business?